dreamer, but my heart's of gold. I had a runaway.
Picture a random Tuesday. Not a big holiday, not a milestone birthday, just an ordinary day where you're carrying groceries, answering texts, and thinking you'll call your mom later. And maybe you will. Or maybe later gets pushed to next week, and then next month, and then suddenly you're staring at the kind of news that divides your life into before and after.
A therapist in Los Angeles told me about a client who got that news. His mother's cancer was terminal. And instead of offering a vague, comforting idea, the therapist gave him a blunt assignment. Write down everything you still want to tell her while you still can. That sounds like the kind of thing that makes people flinch. Like, you say it out loud and everyone goes, "Whoa, that's dark." That's exactly what happened. His friends were horrified. They thought it was morbid. But he did it anyway. And after his mom died, he came back to that therapist and he was crying. She was too. Because he told her, "I'm so glad we did it. I don't feel like there's anything left unsaid." That line lands like a weight. Not because it's dramatic, because it's rare. Most people don't get to feel that kind of closure. And it highlights a trap we fall into all the time. Acting like time with our parents is unlimited. Like the conversation can always happen later. The truth is, later isn't guaranteed. So today we're going to do something that sounds simple, but isn't always easy. We're going to talk about the things worth saying to your mom while you still can.
And then, because life is messy and these topics are connected in surprising ways, we're going to widen the lens. We'll talk about what lack of sleep does to your body, why empathy can end arguments faster than being right, and a truly strange finding: your brain may still process language even when you're under anesthesia.
This is one of those episodes where the headline topics don't look like they belong together. Until they do. Let's start where the heart is. Your mom. If you're thinking, "I love her, she knows that," great. But love can get blurry when it's never put into words. The best conversations usually aren't Hallmark card lines. They're specific, they're real. They prove you were paying attention.
Here's the first sentence that changes everything. "I saw how hard that was for you."
That's different from "thanks for everything." It's like you're naming the invisible labor. Exactly. When you're little, you don't have the brain space to notice what your mom is balancing. You're 3 years old having a meltdown over the wrong cup, and she's trying to get you out the door, keep a job, handle a relationship, maybe pay bills, maybe care for someone else too. Years later, with more life lived, maybe with kids of your own, you finally have the language to say, "I get it now." And here's the second one. For families who don't line up on everything, "I know we don't agree about everything, but I got my stubbornness from you, and I'm grateful for it." That one's sneaky. It's an olive branch without turning the conversation into a debate. There's research from a sociologist who's followed hundreds of mothers and their adult kids for decades. And one finding keeps showing up. What many mothers care about most is not whether you live nearby or your job title or even how often you call. It's whether you share core values. But what if you feel like you don't share anything? Like politics, religion, lifestyle, everything is different.
Even then, it's rare to be completely different on every value. Sometimes the shared value is beneath the surface. Think about not married, raising kids, and their life doesn't match her original expectations at all. But underneath, there's still something like, build a family with the person you love, want something stable, commit, love fiercely.
That can be common ground even when everything on the surface looks like a disagreement.
Third sentence, "You didn't rush me, and it shaped how I handle pressure now."
Wait, so not rushing a kid is a life skill? More than that. Specialists in child development talk about chronic rushing as a kind of low-grade stress training. When kids are constantly hurried, shoes on, backpack, we're late, stress hormones can stay elevated in the background. But a mom who slowed things down, who let you finish your thought, who let you struggle a little, who gave you time to tie your shoes, she was helping your nervous system learn how to settle. So the adult who can stay calm under pressure might be carrying that early rhythm with them. That's the idea. And telling your mom you noticed gives her credit for something she may not even realize she did.
Fourth sentence, "I used to resent you for this, and I don't anymore." That's brave. Also, risky.
It can be, which is why the framing matters. The point isn't to walk in and throw an old grievance like a grenade. It's repair. It's release. The kind of conversation that families often avoid because no one knows how to start. A gentle way in sounds like, "Mom, I want to talk about something, and I'm coming from a place of healing." That sentence does a lot of work. It tells her she's not on trial, you're not reopening the case, you're saying, "I've processed this, and I want us to be freer now." And honestly, just naming the resentment can unclench years of tension.
Fifth, I quote you all the time and I didn't even realize it.
That's fun. Also kind of shocking when it happens, like you hear yourself say something and go, oh no, I'm turning into my parents. Yes, except instead of making it a joke, you turn it into a gift. Because your mom probably has no idea which throwaway phrase became a permanent fixture in your brain. Telling her makes decades of small advice suddenly visible. And there's a move that hits even harder. In the middle of a normal conversation, you repeat one of her classic lines back to her. You can almost picture the face. That moment of recognition, then the realization you've been carrying her words for years. Sixth, you gave me room to make mistakes and it helped me grow. That takes restraint from a parent, not jumping in to prevent every bad outcome.
And letting a kid learn by doing can wire learning faster than a lecture. There's a small story I can't stop thinking about. A child tossing a rock up into the air, catching it again and again. The parent doesn't intervene. Eventually, the rock hits the child, and the mom says calmly, basically, well, that's why we don't do that. It's almost funny, but it's also the point. Safe mistake, clear consequence, lesson locked in for life. Seventh, you're one of the funniest people I know.
That one might surprise a lot of moms. People don't usually compliment them on humor, they compliment competence. Right, moms get cast as managers, caretakers, logistics experts. Funny can get overlooked. But saying it, especially with a specific example, like a line she said at Thanksgiving that you still repeat, tells her you see the full person, not just the role.
Eighth, you made our home feel loving and safe.
Not nice house, but the emotional atmosphere. Exactly. Many mothers poured effort into making home a place you wanted to be. That environment becomes the backdrop of your memories. Sunday mornings, the kitchen, a couch where you watch shows together. If you can name a specific room or ritual and say, I still feel that warmth when I think about it, you're telling her, I wasn't just living there, I was held there.
Ninth, here's what I learned about love from watching you.
That's huge, that's legacy.
It's saying, your love didn't stop with you. It moved through me. And it helps to identify a moment, something simple, like her keeping her phone on at night when you were sick or scared, or showing up without making you beg. Then connect it to who you are now, how you care for others, because you watched her do it first.
And 10th, I'm proud of who I've become, and you're a big part of that. That one might undo a mom in the best way. Because by adulthood, we can name what we're proud of. How we handle crises, how we parent, how we show up as a friend. But we rarely draw the line back to her. Life adds so many influences, school, partners, jobs, hardship, that the origin story gets fuzzy. Saying, you're part of why I'm proud to be me, makes the link clear again. And it's even stronger when you get specific. I stay calm because you modeled calm. Or I remember birthdays because you taught me people matter. Okay. That's the first arc of this episode, what we leave unsaid and how to say it while we can. Now let's pivot, because there's another thing we keep postponing with the same illusion of infinite time. Sleep. We treat sleep like a luxury item, like we'll catch up later. But the body keeps score. Sleep researchers are blunt about it. Nearly every major system in your body depends on sleep for maintenance and reset. So when you regularly cut sleep short, the consequences go way beyond feeling tired. First, your immune system. Sleep is when your body does deep repair. When you don't get enough, your ability to mount an immune response drops. That's not poetic, it's measurable. Sleep loss is linked to higher infection risk, and even vaccine responses can weaken when you're running on too little rest. So if someone brags they're fine on 4 or 5 hours, their immune system might quietly disagree. Second, the heart. Large studies have found that short sleep, like under 6 hours a night, tracks with higher risk of heart disease. And it's not just the amount. Irregular sleep, with no consistent bed and wake times, is also tied to greater risk of cardiovascular events like stroke or heart failure.
It's wild that I go to bed whenever can show up later as a heart issue.
There are a lot of mechanisms. Blood vessels don't regulate as smoothly, blood pressure tends to rise, inflammation increases, cholesterol can shift, plaque risk rises, your heart ends up working harder.
Third, weight gain. Tired brains make tired decisions. People tend to snack more, choose less nutritious foods, and move less. There's also evidence that sleep restriction shifts chemical signals tied to appetite and reward, which can make cravings louder.
Fourth, diabetes risk. Lack of sleep is linked to insulin resistance. When sleep is short, insulin regulation can get thrown off, and cells can become less effective at using insulin. That chain can push you toward type 2 diabetes risk over time.
And fifth has to be the brain, right?
Right. Cognitive health takes a hit. Mood worsens, emotion regulation gets harder, anxiety and depression symptoms can intensify. There's also preliminary evidence connecting sleep loss to higher risk for diseases like Alzheimer's. Sleep is not downtime for the brain, it's essential maintenance. So where does insomnia fit in? Because a lot of people say, I'm sleep deprived, but what they mean is, I can't sleep. Good distinction. Sleep deprivation can be not giving yourself enough time for sleep or getting low-quality sleep. Insomnia is when you can't fall asleep even when you're trying. If that's you, it's worth talking to a clinician. But there are also foundational moves that help almost everyone. Same bedtime and wake time most days. A cool, dark, quiet room, keeping phones and screens out of bed, avoiding heavy meals, caffeine and too much alcohol close to bedtime, and regular daily activity.
That advice is almost annoyingly consistent. Because it works.
And if it doesn't, that's when you escalate. Bring it to a doctor, look for sleep apnea, restless legs, medication side effects, circadian issues. Don't just white-knuckle it.
Now, speaking of being wide awake when you want to be asleep, let's talk about racing thoughts. There's a technique sleep experts use themselves. Cognitive shuffling. Already sounds like a deck of cards in your brain.
That's not far off. The idea is to give your mind something neutral to do, lightly engaging, not emotional, so it stops chewing on tomorrow's problems. Here's how it works. When you're in bed, pick a word that feels emotionally blank to you, about 5 to 12 letters. Not deadline, not money, not anything that pulls you into worry. Think something like blanket, garden, kitchen. Then go letter by letter. For the first letter, name as many unrelated words as you can. Then the next letter, same thing. And the key is unrelated, right? No story building. Exactly. If your brain starts connecting them into a plot, you've accidentally made it interesting. And each time you say a word, you briefly picture it. Just a quick mental snapshot, not a detailed art project.
So if I'm on G and I say goat, I just see a goat for a second and move on. Yes, the goal isn't to finish. The goal is to drift off somewhere mid-letter. If you get to the end still awake, pick another neutral word and go again. And a practical tip, avoid words with repeating letters, because you'll hit the same letter again and your mind can loop in a way that keeps you too engaged. Why does this beat counting sheep? Counting never worked for me.
Counting is so repetitive, your brain gets bored, and then your real stress storms back in. Cognitive shuffling is different. It nudges your brain toward the looser, more wandering state that naturally precedes sleep without letting it fall back into problem-solving mode. And it's not for everything, right? If somebody has sleep apnea, shuffling words won't fix breathing. Exactly. It's best for the person who's generally fine, but brings rumination into bed. Also, if visualization is hard for you, some people can't generate mental images well, it may not be a great fit. And you can't turn it into a performance. If you're grading yourself, you've missed the point. Now let's walk into another room of the mind. Conflict. Because if you're not sleeping and you're stressed, guess what gets worse? Arguments. And the fastest way out of many arguments isn't winning, it's empathy. That sounds soft, but it's actually strategic.
Exactly. Therapists say anger is usually the top layer. It's the visible part of the iceberg. Under it, you often find sadness, disappointment, fear, stress. When you can sense that underneath layer, you stop treating conflict like me versus you and start treating it like we're on the same team facing a problem. There are a few practical exercises that build empathy fast. First, explain the disagreement like you're telling a child what happened. That forces you to remove the loaded words and the villain story. You stick to what occurred, what you felt, what you thought. The simpler version often leaves room for another perspective. Second is the one that makes people squirm. Rewrite the conflict from the other person's point of view. Yes. On paper. You write your paragraph. Then you write theirs using I statements as if you are them. You're not granting them sainthood. You're practicing the idea that two truths can exist at once. You can feel dismissed while they're genuinely depleted. Understanding that opens the door to solutions.
Third, talk to yourself the way you'd talk to a friend. If you can't validate your own emotions, you'll have a hard time being present for someone else's. Give yourself 60 seconds of real compassion. That was hard to hear. Of course you're upset. It makes sense. Not to prove you're right, just to regulate your nervous system enough to respond instead of react. Because when you're flooded, you're basically offline, you're not solving anything.
Fourth, a 90-second perspective shift. You can even do mid-argument. For a minute and a half, answer 3 questions as if you're the other person. What am I feeling right now? What am I worried about or trying to protect? What do I wish the other person understood about me? Then go back to yourself and ask, what did I miss? That's like interrupting the momentum of the fight.
Exactly. And fifth, identify one thing you share. Conflict makes people feel like strangers. Psychological closeness reverses that. Think of an inside joke, a hardship you endured together, a trip where everything went wrong but you laughed anyway. Remind yourself, this is still my person. Then talk.
Now, here's where the episode takes a turn into the genuinely strange.
We're going into the operating room, aren't we? We are. There's a part of the brain called the hippocampus tucked deep in the center, and it's central to memory and learning. It helps organize experience as it comes in. And a new study suggests it might keep doing more than we thought, even when you're unconscious under general anesthesia. So your brain is still working with language while you're out?
In this small study, researchers had access to data from a handful of people undergoing a specific kind of epilepsy-related brain surgery. While those patients were under anesthesia, doctors played audio in the room, episodes of a storytelling podcast.
A podcast in the OR is a surreal detail.
It is, but what the data suggested was the surprising part. Neurons in the hippocampus looked like they were doing some of the same language-related work you'd expect when someone is awake. Patterns consistent with anticipating what kind of word might come next, like whether a verb or a noun is likely.
That's not conscious understanding in the normal sense, but it's complex processing happening without awareness. So does that mean people can understand conversations during surgery? Not necessarily. Experts are clear about that. The takeaway isn't you're listening from inside the anesthesia, it's more like consciousness and complex brain processing are not identical. Your brain can run sophisticated computations without you being aware of them.
And the memory question is the one everyone asks. Are you forming memories under anesthesia?
There's been earlier work suggesting that even if patients can't consciously recall words played during anesthesia, there might be faint traces, like being more likely to choose words they were exposed to without knowing why. It's subtle and not the same as remembering a conversation.
But it reinforces the mystery. The brain can be active, learning-like processes can be happening, and yet the person isn't conscious.
So here we are at the end with 4 threads. What you say to your mom, the way you sleep, the empathy that keeps relationships from corroding, and the fact that your brain is doing more behind the scenes than you realize.
And the shared theme is time. How we assume we have it, how we spend it, how we postpone the essential stuff.
Exactly. If you take one thing from this episode, let it be this. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Choose one sentence, the most true one, and say it. Text it. Voice note it. Tell her in the car. Say it while you're washing dishes, while she's folding laundry, while nothing special is happening. And tonight, if you're doom scrolling in bed, maybe take the hint your future self is trying to send. Put the phone down. Give your brain the conditions it needs to recover. If your mind is racing, pick a neutral word and shuffle your way towards sleep.
Because the goal isn't to live like everything is urgent, it's to live like what matters is worth doing now.
And if you're in the middle of a disagreement with someone you love, remember the iceberg. Ask what's underneath the anger. Find one thing you share. And try empathy, not as surrender, but as the fastest route back to each other. Please subscribe at IamHealthyMoney.com and visit us at Q&A with Kim and Ray on YouTube. It would mean so much more than you know. I will continue to bring you fascinating subjects with all the research so you don't have to do it all alone. We will learn together. And then wait until the end of each video for a sneak peek into the next research project. Life has its ups and downs, but you're not alone.
From 10 to 110, we're in this together, right here, right now.
We love ya.